Revealed. How a billionaire's heartwarming apology to his wife transformed their $2 billion fate. Jack Thompson stood in the midst of his sprawling suburban estate, the sun glinting off the manicured lawns and lavish fountains. To outsiders, he was a titan of the American dream, a self-made billionaire with a real estate empire that stretched across the country. But behind the glittering facade was an emotional chasm that loomed larger than the wealth he amassed. His wife Sarah felt like a ghost drifting through their opulent home, surrounded by luxury but starved for connection. And their teenage kids? A rebellious daughter, always in a fight for attention, and a quiet son shut away in his room, both craving their father's presence amid his endless board meetings and high-stakes deals. As the annual community festival drew near, Jack was consumed with dread. He unknowingly stumbled upon a folded note in Sarah's crafting room, a simple declaration that shattered his world. She planned to leave him. The realization hit hard, a gut punch that echoed through his chest as the magnitude of his negligence sank in. This was not just about wealth, it was about love and family. A realization that turned his entire existence upside down. Desperate, and perhaps a little bit desperate, Jack decided it was time for a change. He roamed the streets of his hometown, stepping into local shops, meeting teachers, and hearing the stories of ordinary people. He listened intently, soaking in tales of hardship and determination. His heart ached at their struggles, and in that moment, he began to see himself not as a billionaire, but simply as a man who had lost track of what truly mattered. "Hey, let me tell you something," he told a local baker. "I've been so wrapped up in my world I forgot about the ones I care about. You're right. Family comes first." The baker smiled, and in those glimmers of connection, Jack felt the stirrings of hope. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." With the festival in full swing, the laughter of children and the scent of fried dough hung in the air. Jack climbed onto the makeshift stage, his heart racing like never before. The crowd's chatter ceased as he stepped up to the microphone, swallowing hard. "Sarah, I'm sorry," he found himself saying, his voice quivering yet resolute. "I've let my success blind me to what truly matters. Our family, I need you." The crowd exchanged glances, palpable tension hanging thick in the air. Just as murmurs of surprise morphed into whispers of support, a storm was brewing. Rumors of shady deals began to surface, threatening to unravel everything Jack had reconnected with. Would this grand gesture be in vain? Could his newfound bond with Sarah be tested before it even had a chance to flourish? As the festival buzzed with energy, Jack's heart raced. Could he weather yet another storm? The silence after Jack's confession was like a sudden pause in a sweeping symphony, an unexpected stillness that pulled at everyone present. He searched the crowd with his eyes, yearning for a sign. Any sign. Would Sarah forgive him? He could see her standing a few feet away, her expression a mixture of surprise and uncertainty. Her brow furrowed, and for a moment, all he could hear was the pulse of his own heartbeat drumming in his ears. "Jack," Sarah finally said, her voice barely audible beneath the sounds of the festival. She stepped forward, the crowd parting like the Red Sea. He could feel the weight of her gaze. "Let's talk, just us," she added, and a ripple of whispers surged through the crowd, their audience suddenly becoming more intimate. Jack nodded, his heart racing. They turned and walked behind the stage, away from the prying eyes and ears, where the noise of the festival faded into a dull hum. Once they were alone, he could feel the air between them thick with tension. "I didn't mean to put you on the spot," he said, rubbing the back of his neck, suddenly feeling awkward. I can't lose you, Sarah. I was so wrong. I just don't know if that's enough anymore," she replied, her voice shaking slightly. "You've let us all down time and time again. We've been living in a palace, but it turned into a prison for me and the kids." Jack's insides twisted. She was right. He had built walls around them, not just around their home. These walls kept him from truly seeing his family, the people he loved most. "Tell me what to do," he implored, stepping closer. "I want to change. I'll do anything to make this right." Sarah took a deep breath, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "It's not just about saying sorry. It's about action. I need you to prove it. We need you to be present in our lives, Jack. It's been years since I've felt like a priority." "I promise I will," he said urgently. "No more board meetings at home, no more late nights. I'll start by organizing family dinners, catching up with the kids, anything." She looked up at him, and for a fleeting moment, there was a glimmer of hope in her expression, but it faded quickly, her vulnerability giving way to resolve. "I want to believe you," Sarah replied slowly. "But it's hard. You've hurt us a lot." He watched her, a wave of desperation washing over him. "I know. Just give me a chance to show you I can be the man you need." They stood there. The only sound was the laughter and music from the festival gradually returning. Jack felt like time had stopped, his whole future teetering on this moment. Would he be able to rebuild what had been shattered? "Let's just take it one day at a time for now," Sarah finally said, her voice a whisper. "But I can't promise anything more." Relief flooded through him, but it came with a weight of the work that still lay ahead. As Jack took a step back, determination washed over him. He was ready to prove that he could be the husband and father they needed. Just then, a loud commotion erupted from the festival area, drawing their attention. "Jack! Sarah!" a voice cried out. Whispers of trouble were growing louder, his name floating on the wind like a warning bell. His chest tightened. "What is that?" Sarah asked, anxiety creeping back into her expression. Jack turned to her, gut churning with unease. "I don't know, but I need to find out." As they hurried back toward the crowd, Jack's mind raced. The challenges he faced with his family were only where the real battle started. There was something else lurking in the shadows, a dark knot of secrets he couldn't ignore any longer. What had he unknowingly stepped into? As Jack and Sarah made their way through the throng of festival-goers, the commotion grew louder, a chaotic symphony of anxious voices and urgent footsteps. Jack's heart raced, not just from the fear of what might be happening, but also from the weight of everything he'd just shared with Sarah. The fragile hope lingering between them felt like a thread, ready to snap at the slightest provocation. "Stay close," he instructed her, gripping her hand tightly. She nodded, her eyes darting around the crowd, searching for answers. Jack's mind mirrored her turmoil. Had his past actions led to this? Was it somehow connected to his business dealings or the enemies he had made over the years? As they reached the edge of the festival area, everything came into focus. A small crowd had gathered around a series of stalls, voices raised in alarm. The colorful banners and glittering lights of the festival seemed to fade into the background, eclipsed by worry. Jack's stomach twisted as he forced his way through the gathering, feeling the familiar weight of dread settle over him like a heavy fog. "Move aside," he shouted, his voice cutting through the murmurs. When he finally broke free to the front, the scene before him was chaotic. A man sat on the ground clutching his ankle, a growing crowd of bystanders anxiously circling around him. "It's broken, I think," a woman shouted, her hands trembling as she dialed for help. Jack's eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation. A few feet away, someone had knocked over a table of glass decorations. The broken glass glinted in the festival lights, a dangerous reminder of how quickly joy could turn into chaos. Jack's gut churned. He could feel how the atmosphere shifted, once festive, now fraught with tension. "Can someone help him?" Sarah called out, her voice steadier than Jack felt. He glanced over at her, surprised by her calm in the midst of this turmoil. Maybe, just maybe, some of that strength could translate to his marriage. But then he refocused on the injured man. Jack knelt beside him. "What happened?" He studied the stranger's face, wanting to understand rather than jump to conclusions. "I tripped on the decorations," the man grimaced, trying to pull himself up, but pain shot through him, causing his expression to twist. In that moment, Jack felt a flicker of déjà vu. "Help is on the way. Try to stay still," he said, recalling how he'd let his pride and ambition blind him to the chaos in his own life. As sirens echoed in the distance, he glanced back at Sarah. She was already in action, talking to the crowd and maintaining order. Her confidence shone through the chaos, rekindling a sense of admiration he thought he'd lost. "Jack!" she called, her voice ringing out amidst the chaos. "Can you grab a first aid kit from the festival tent?" "Of course," he responded, jumping to his feet and dashing towards the tent. Each step felt like a race against time, a chance to do something meaningful, something that mattered. Maybe this was his shot to prove he could change. While he hurried through the tents, Jack's mind was a whirlwind of emotions and thoughts. How had he let things spiral so far? Was the joy in his family as fragile as the shattered glass around him? When he returned, the paramedics had arrived, helping the injured man onto a stretcher. Relief washed over Jack. He had done a small part, but it had felt significant. He caught Sarah's eye, and in that moment, he saw hope. A lingering spark that brought warmth to the cold realization of their reality. "Did you see that?" she said, her voice full of admiration. "You jumped right into action." Jack felt a flutter in his chest. "Yeah, I want to be there, you know. For you. For us." Before she could reply, a loud crash sounded at another booth, drawing their attention once more. This time it was a group of rowdy teenagers, bottles in hand and laughter in the air, oblivious to the tension they were causing. It was a stark reminder of the unpredictability of the world around them. "Seems like trouble is following us," Jack muttered, watching Sarah's frown deepen. "Let's hope it's not a sign," she replied. The uncertainty in her eyes flickered again. Would they be able to navigate through this chaos, both around them and within their strained relationship? As they watched the unfolding scene, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. There were still unspoken words between them, complexities that needed to be untangled. And as the festival carried on, louder than before, he knew he had to confront his own demons. In that moment, he vowed to himself that he would tackle whatever challenges lay ahead, both for the sake of his family and for a chance at redemption. But would Sarah agree to stand by him, through not just the celebration, but through the chaos lurking just around the corner? "What do you mean by not a sign?" Jack asked, his voice almost drowned out by another crash nearby. A couple of teenagers had taken to the festival's decorations, swinging a banner like a lasso. Sarah bit her lip, eyes narrowed, as she tried to maintain her calm. "They're reckless," she said, glancing at the group. "They don't care about the people around them." Jack nodded, absorbing her frustration. The reckless behavior sent electric jolts of vulnerability straight to his core. How many times had he been that careless? The thrill of the chase had been intoxicating, ignoring the collateral damage he had caused over the years. "Let's go to the food stalls," he suggested, a sudden need to distance them from the chaos of the crowd. "Maybe we can find a quieter spot." Sarah offered a tentative smile, and for a moment, the weight between them felt lighter. They began to weave through the throng again, past booths selling colorful trinkets and tantalizing treats. The air was thick with the smell of popcorn and fried dough. Children giggled, playing games, completely oblivious to the tension surrounding their parents. Jack's heart ached at the thought of how far they had drifted from such innocence. They reached a quieter corner by the apple cider stand, where the noise felt muted and the colorful lights hung like stars around them. "Jack, do you really think we can make it through this?" Sarah asked softly, her eyes catching the light. He hesitated. She was looking for assurance, but all he could offer was honesty. "I want to think we can. Wanting isn't enough. I need to know you mean it. I need more than empty promises." Her words cut through the air, raw and unfiltered. Jack clenched his jaw, the tension in the pit of his stomach flaring again. "I can change, Sarah, but I can't do it alone." She studied him, her gaze unwavering. The truth hung between them, heavy but necessary. Jack wanted to step forward, to pull her into an embrace, but he knew it couldn't be that simple. There were scars that ran deep, and walls that he had built up so high. I'm not asking for miracles, Sarah finally said, her voice softening. Just show me you care enough to try. I can do that, he replied, his heart drumming a frenetic rhythm against his chest. Suddenly a loud scream erupted from nearby, followed by the clattering of metal. Jack's instincts kicked in, and in unison they turned towards the source of commotion. A food cart had overturned, and a teenage boy was sprawled on the ground, a deep gash on his forehead. Stay here, Jack commanded Sarah, his internal pulse racing. Without waiting for a response, he sprinted again towards the scene, the earlier resolve overshadowed by the urgency of the moment. As he reached the young boy, he could see panic in the face of the vendor standing helplessly by. What do we do? Is anyone calling for help? Jack dropped to kneel beside the boy. You'll be okay. Don't move. He tried to steady the boy, whose eyes darted in fright. Help is coming. Moments later, he saw Sarah appear at the edge of the crowd, concern etched on her face. Her presence steadied him. She wasn't just watching, she was processing, calculating just like him. Are you all right? Jack called out, needing reassurance that she was safe. I'm fine, she answered, her voice cutting through the chaos. I can help. Just say the word. And in that shared urgency, something shifted between them. The chaos of the festival faded, and for a heartbeat, Jack felt as if they were a team again, standing arm in arm against the turmoil. The realization surged through him, a powerful reminder that his life was not just about him anymore. It was about them, together facing whatever storm loomed ahead. But in the corners of that chaotic moment, Jack sensed the weight of more serious challenges brewing. If the chaos outside mirrored their internal struggles, what other obstacles were lurking in the shadows? As sirens wailed in the distance, reeling closer, he felt adrenaline rush through him. Would he be able to continue to rise to the occasion, or would they both fall back into the patterns that had nearly destroyed them? The sirens grew louder, and with them, he understood their work was just beginning. Jack remained beside the injured boy, his heart racing in sync with the distant sirens. The vibrations of the festival around them faded, leaving only the urgent pulse of the crisis they were navigating. He glanced up at Sarah, who had joined the small group forming around them. Her eyes sparkled with determination, and for the first time in a long while, Jack felt a flicker of hope. All right, everyone, Sarah directed, her voice rising above the murmur. We need to clear some space. Someone call 911, and if anyone has a clean cloth, we can apply pressure to stop the bleeding. Jack admired how effortlessly she took control of the situation. It reminded him of what they used to be, partners in everything, supporting each other through dark moments and light. The boy on the ground winced, causing Jack's stomach to twist with compassion. As soon as the paramedics get here, you'll be all right, Jack assured him, keeping his tone calm. What's your name? Ryan, the boy croaked, tears glistening in his eyes. Ryan, I'm Jack, he said, squeezing the boy's hand. You're really brave. Help is almost here. Within seconds, an onlooker rushed forward with a handkerchief. Sarah took it, gently pressing it against Ryan's head. The vendor paced anxiously, his hands trembling, clearly shaken by the chaos. I didn't see him there. He dashed out of nowhere, the vendor exclaimed, voice cracking. It's okay, this isn't your fault, Jack said, his mind racing. He glanced back at Sarah, their eyes locking for a brief moment. There was a connection, an understanding that perhaps they could rebuild what they had lost, piece by piece. Yes, you didn't see him, but we need to focus on helping Ryan, Sarah urged, her compassion evident in her tone. You're not alone in this. Jack marveled at how easily they fell back into their rhythm, two people becoming one fluid action amid chaos. Just then, he caught sight of paramedics rushing through the crowd, their sirens finally silent. Relief washed over him, but a nagging thought pulled at the corner of his mind. Could this small act of connection be a turning point in their relationship? As the medics moved in, Jack felt a surge of adrenaline mixed with anxiety. Sarah stepped back slightly to allow space for the professionals. She turned to Jack, her face a mix of hope and uncertainty. Did we do enough? No, he exhaled, shaking his head almost desperately. We have a lot to still figure out, but tonight made me realize something. We can be a team again. The tenderness in her gaze hinted at the fragility of their moment. "Do you really mean that?" "More than anything," he replied, pain lifting from his guarded heart. In that heartbeat, something shifted, and the chaotic noise of the festival became a mere backdrop to their intimate exchange. Yet just as hope dared to bloom, Jack sensed a shift in Sarah's expression. "We can't just stop here, Jack. A moment of clarity isn't enough if we don't act on it." "I know. I can't keep making promises I can't keep," he admitted, feeling a deeper truth weighing down on him. "But I want to prove that I can change." Just as he resolved to take decisive action, the boy's mother rushed through the crowd, panic etched across her face. The air thickened as eyes turned towards her. Jack felt his heart drop. Would they be prepared for the truths hidden behind this veiled emotional moment? Facing the unfolding reality, Jack's pulse quickened. How many more revelations awaited them? And if confrontation was coming, would they be strong enough to meet it together? The moment the boy's mother broke through the crowd felt surreal, as if all of time had momentarily stilled. Her frantic eyes swept over the gathering, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. Jack could see her expression shift from confusion to utter terror as she spotted Ryan on the ground. He squeezed his eyes shut for a heartbeat, wishing he could somehow spare her from this heartbreak. "Ryan!" she cried, collapsing beside her son. Her hands clutched at his shoulders, her pleas piercing through the air. "Sweetheart, please, can you hear me?" Jack's heart ached at the sight of her, crumbling like a fragile statue. He wanted to reach out, to pull her into a comforting embrace, but he knew they were all in this together, strangers and friends alike, bound by the gravity of the moment. The paramedics moved quickly, but Jack felt frozen, unable to take his eyes off the mother's desperate gaze. "Ma'am, we need you to step back," one of the medics urged gently but firmly. Yet her instinct to protect her son kept her anchored beside him, unwilling to yield. Jack glanced at Sarah, and the shared understanding between them deepened. They had both felt loss, the raw pain of things slipping through their fingers. Maybe that was why they had instinctively stepped forward to help Ryan now. "I'm so sorry," the vendor muttered, backing away. "I didn't mean to—" "None of this was planned," Sarah interrupted, kneeling beside the grieving mother, who was now murmuring softly to her son. "But you can't blame yourself. Stay focused on him." "Just breathe, Ryan, please," the mother pleaded, her voice cracking. But the paramedics were already working to stabilize him, checking vital signs, cutting away hair to access the scalp wound. Jack felt a swell of helplessness. It was too familiar, the feeling of being unable to save someone you cared about. "He's strong," Jack whispered, trying to reassure her as he bent down, catching her eye. "Ryan will make it through this." A flicker of recognition passed between them. He was just a stranger, yet there was a shared understanding of fear, an unspoken bond forged in crisis. Suddenly the mother's gaze flared with anger, fueled by fear. "What do you mean he'll make it? My son was just having fun. It's all your fault." The words struck Jack like a fist to the gut. He understood her rage, felt the weight of her grief. It wasn't rational. It didn't have to be. In moments like this, emotion surged and broke free like the floodgates bursting. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice low. "It was an accident. We tried to help him." "Help isn't enough. You don't understand," she exclaimed, anguish spilling over. Jack clenched his fists, struggling against the wave of despair slamming into him. Maybe she was right. What could he offer that could truly fix this? But before he could respond, Ryan's mother turned away, her eyes darting back to her son, her heart tethered to his fragile body. The looming chaos felt less like a festival and more like a storm threatening to swallow them whole. In that moment, Jack realized that the weight of this night stretched beyond Ryan's injury. It encompassed everything he had ever avoided: the pain of his past, the unsettled feelings between him and Sarah, their relationship trapped in a fragile space. If he didn't face those things head on, what they had would slip away just as easily. As silence enveloped the group again, a fragile hope flickered across Sarah's face. It was there, blazing with intent, and Jack couldn't shake an unsettling feeling. This moment would change them. He could sense it. But would it shatter their already fragile connection, or bring them closer together? Just then, a voice broke through the tense air. A figure emerged from the festival, looking purposefully determined, holding something in their hands. Who were they, and what did they intend to bring to this emotional collision? Would this revelation lead to healing, or would it deepen the fractures already forming? The crowd parted like waves as the figure approached, determination etched across their face. Jack squinted, trying to make out who was coming closer. It was an older woman, her silver hair glowing softly under the festival lights. In her hands, she held a small gift basket, its vibrant colors standing out against the somber atmosphere. What is she doing? Jack thought, his heart pounding. How could a mere basket change anything in this moment of trauma? Yet, there was a sense of purpose in her stride that demanded attention. Is that? Sarah whispered, her voice trailing off as she recognized the woman. That's Mrs. Hargrove. She owns the community center. Jack didn't remember the name, but he liked how Sarah's voice, laced with familiarity, created a brief reprieve from the throbbing tension. As Mrs. Hargrove reached the gathered crowd, her eyes swept over the scene before locking onto Ryan's mother. The woman's stance softened, losing some of its earlier resolve. "Ma'am, my sincerest apologies for this," Mrs. Hargrove said, her tone gentle but strong. "I heard what happened and wanted to bring something for you, for strength, for comfort." The grieving mother glanced up, confusion mingling with her pain. "How can that help?" she retorted, pain crackling in her voice. "It's not about gifts or baskets." Mrs. Hargrove took a breath, stepping closer. "No, it's not. You're right. But sometimes we find strength in the smallest gestures. It's love that will help you through this, from anyone willing to stand by your side." Jack felt something shift in the air. He wasn't sure if it was just the weight of hope or the kind of raw truth only someone who had endured life's hardships could speak. It didn't matter. The words resonated collectively, washing over the crowd. "Please," the woman continued, her gaze unwavering as she offered the basket. "Let me help you hold on to that love, even when it feels lost." Ryan's mother hesitated, her anger flickering as tears braved their way down her cheeks. She reached out hesitantly, reluctantly accepting the basket, as if it contained a new lifeline. Jack's throat tightened watching her, the change in her demeanor subtle, yet powerful. "Thank you," came the whisper, breaking like glass through the chaos. It was the first genuine connection Jack had seen since the devastation began. Then, as if on cue, they all looked back at Ryan. The medics had stabilized him and faint sirens wailed in the distance. Hope, fragile yet undeniable, began to ripple through the onlookers, even among those who were strangers just minutes ago. "Is he going to be okay?" Jack breathed, his voice cracking, though he already sensed the answer lay in the waiting. "He's strong," Sarah echoed softly, her voice filling the gap of uncertainty. "Just like his mother." In that instant, Jack locked eyes with her, the understanding between them deepening again. They needed each other. They had always needed each other. The weight they both carried was lifting, if only slightly, urging them into something undeniable. But as the excitement felt less frantic and the moment grew quiet again, Jack couldn't help but think about what it would take for the community to heal. Would it be the same love that had brought Mrs. Hargrove here? Or would they all need to face their truths, just as he and Sarah would? Before he could ponder further, a loud voice cut through the stillness. "This isn't over. We need to figure out what happened." The crowd turned again, new tension mounting. Who would take the lead, and what consequences loomed ahead? Jack felt the chill of apprehension creep back in. The weight of unresolved burdens still loomed large, threatening to shatter the brief hope that had begun to form. What new revelations awaited them, and how could they move forward from here? Jack felt the crowd tighten around him, each person a tug on the thread of anxiety weaving its way through the gathering. He caught sight of another familiar face, that of Mr. Thompson, the local mechanic. His brow was furrowed and his jaw set, a mix of anger and fear showing in his posture. "What do you mean by that?" Mr. Thompson shouted, his voice slicing through the murmurs. "You think we can just stand here and wait for answers? This is about more than just Ryan. This is about our whole community." "A tragedy like this doesn't just happen," another voice chimed in, a woman unknown to Jack. Someone must be held accountable. Discontent rippled through the crowd, faces shifting from sorrow to fear and anger. Jack glanced at Sarah, who looked equally unsettled. The warmth of connection they had shared moments ago seemed vulnerable, wavering like a flame dancing in wind. "Maybe they're right," Jack said, his voice low. "But what good is it going to do? We need to focus on Ryan. The rest can wait." But Sarah shook her head, determination brewing in her eyes. "No, Jack. We can't ignore it. If something happened that could have been prevented. But what if it wasn't? What if it was just an accident?" Jack countered, his heart racing. He felt the heat rise in his chest, not from anger but sheer apprehension. The unknown did that to people, flipped them into a panic, both for those they loved and for themselves. "Silence won't fix anything," Mr. Thompson's voice boomed through the crowd. "This isn't just about Ryan. What about our kids? What about safety? If we don't demand answers now, what's the point?" The sentiment ignited a consensus among the people. Shifting murmurs morphed into sharper voices, and suddenly every eye turned toward the center, awaiting the next move. Jack felt the weight of their gazes, the hidden frustrations, the fears. They were coming undone, pouring out in a wave of demand. "Okay, but who do we ask?" Sarah's question cut through the chaos, her focus shifting to a more practical angle. "I think I know who to speak to," Mr. Thompson replied, his gaze darting toward the park entrance, where the faint silhouette of Officer Daniels appeared, a familiar figure among the community. "We can start there." Jack felt pulse quicken. Would that lead to something constructive? Questions began to form in his mind. Whispers of hope mixed with fear, creating a tempest. Would they be ready to handle the answers if they came? "Hold on," Jack interjected, pushing through the throng as fear began to weigh heavily on him. "Whatever happens, let's not lose sight of what counts. Ryan needs us. We can't get sidetracked." Mrs. Hargrove appeared again, moving closer as she overheard Jack's words. "We can do both," she said, projecting calmness. "We can demand answers without losing sight of those in need. Together we can balance concern for our community and the love we have for Ryan." The perspective settled over Jack like a warm blanket. He sensed a shift, a powerful collaborative spirit shaping the words being shared. Maybe there was a chance to connect their emotions into something more than just grief. As Jack turned back to Sarah, another round of whispered conversations had sparked. Faces around them were alight with determination, yet the tension remained palpable. What would it take for hope and healing to prevail? "Jack," she said, breaking the spell. "Are we all really ready for this?" Jack searched her eyes and he found it. Determination buried alongside concern. "I think we have to be." But deep down he wondered, were they truly prepared for what lay ahead? As the crowd began to move in solidarity toward Officer Daniels, the question lingered like a storm cloud, heavy with the promise of revelation. There was no going back now. Would they find the answers they needed, or would they uncover something darker that would change everything? Jack took a deep breath as the crowd surged toward Officer Daniels. The energy crackled between them, a mix of anticipation and dread. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, but no one could predict what it would bring. Everyone around him murmured their thoughts, some anxious, some furious, and he couldn't help but feel the weight of their collective worry. They reached Daniels, who stood at the entrance, hands on his hips, visibly distressed by the mounting crowd. His uniform was slightly wrinkled, evidence of the long day he'd faced. Jack could sense the officer shifting, trying to find a balance between maintaining order and acknowledging the desperate energy radiating from the community. "Officer Daniels!" Mr. Thompson thrust his voice above the crowd, desperation lining his tone. "We need answers about Ryan. We can't just stand here. What happened?" Daniels glanced around, taking stock of the urgency that hung in the air. Jack felt his heart pound in his chest as he awaited the officer's response. The regret and fear painted on Daniels' face gave him a sick feeling in the pit of his stomach. Had they all gathered merely to be let down? "Look, I understand your frustration," Daniels said, raising his hands. But what?" someone roared from the back of the crowd. "We deserve to know." The tension was electric now, palpable and fierce. Jack exchanged a glance with Sarah, whose eyes shone with uncertainty. They both knew this was about more than just Ryan. It was about their community standing strong, together. He stepped forward, forcing himself to be brave. "What can we do?" Jack asked, his voice steady yet tinged with urgency. "How can we help find the answers we need? Together, we can bring light to this." Daniels paused, a flicker of respect in his eyes for Jack's boldness. "We need information. Witnesses who can piece together what happened. If you know anything at all, please come forward. I promise you, we'll do whatever we can to protect our community." "Wait." Jack felt a surge of determination. He turned back to the crowd, taking in the worried expressions surrounding him. "Let's work together. Let's spread the word. If anyone has information, we need to know. We can't let fear keep us quiet. Ryan deserves that, and so do we." The crowd began to respond, murmurs turning into louder voices. Jack's heart raced, not just from adrenaline but from the stirring energy around him. They were a collective force. This wasn't just about one boy's unfortunate accident. This was about rekindling hope in their streets torn apart by anxiety and loss. But just as Jack was feeling that spark ignite, he overheard whispers spiraling behind him. "What if it was more than an accident?" one voice questioned. "What if someone really was responsible?" The idea sent a chill down his spine. Had something sinister occurred? Was their peaceful little town harboring secrets darker than they ever imagined? Jack found Sarah's gaze again, and he could see the fear reflected in her eyes. The possibility of facing a hidden truth unsettled him. Not everyone was prepared for that kind of revelation. "Did anyone see anything suspicious that night?" Daniels called, emphasizing the urgency. "Please come talk to me after this." The crowd continued to stir restlessly, and the chatter spread like wildfire, fueling both anxiety and determination. Jack felt a shifting within him, a calling to take action, but also a fear of what they might uncover. Would they find answers or complicate matters further? As he set out to talk with those around him, he realized that confrontations with uncertainty could lead to knowing deep truths. His chest tightened with a mix of hope and dread. Did they really have what it took to handle whatever lay ahead? The thought echoed repeatedly. As the crowd began to disperse, Jack lingered, unable to shake the weight on his shoulders. He had no idea what they might encounter, but as he looked into the crowd, he knew that together they would face it all, whatever the outcome. "Will we ever be the same again?" he whispered to himself. And in that moment the question hung in the air, as heavy as the fears they were trying to confront. Jack felt a tidal wave of emotion wash over him as the festival crowd slowly began to disperse. The energy he'd felt moments ago shifted, turning into a heavy silence filled with contemplation. He stood there, heart racing, his pulse echoing the weight of the uncharted territory they were about to tread. He turned to Sarah, who stood beside him, her brow furrowed but determination in her eyes. "Are we ready for this?" she asked quietly. Jack took a deep breath. "I don't know," he admitted, "but we need to be." In that moment, he recognized that this challenge was not just about Ryan or their community's safety. It was personal. This was their chance to confront everything they had been avoiding, the fractures in their relationship, the distance that had grown like a chasm. The unspoken words still lingered in the air, but so did the love they'd built over the years. They were stronger together, and they had to reclaim that not only for themselves but also for their children. A murmur began to ripple through the crowd again. People were gathering in small groups, sharing stories, expressing concern, and finding solace in collective vulnerability. Jack felt the threads of hope knitting their community back together, strong and unbreakable. Within that atmosphere of connection, he sensed a mirror reflecting his feelings towards Sarah. Was it just him, or was she beginning to thaw too? As Jack stepped forward, he called out, "If anyone has any information, no matter how small, we need to come together and help each other. Let's support Ryan, his mom, and each other through this." The crowd fell silent for a moment, taking in his words. Then, to his surprise, the noise of supportive voices began to rise one by one. "Yes, we will help," a woman shouted, followed by others. A warmth surged through him, and he could smell change hanging in the air. Sarah squeezed his hand, a silent agreement passing between them. In that instant, Jack understood that they were not just spectators in their lives. They were active participants, willing to write a new chapter together. But just as they regained their sense of purpose, an unexpected announcement blared over the loudspeakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will stand here tonight in solidarity. Let's show our love and support. Ryan will overcome this challenge." The unexpected words lifted the mood, transforming worry into determination. Everyone, shoulder to shoulder, began to chant Ryan's name, echoing against the backdrop of the festival lights. Jack felt tears prick his eyes, filled with warmth for a boy he had never met but whose story had shaken him deeply. In that moment of unity, he looked at Sarah, their gazes locking. As the chants grew louder, he whispered, "This is what we've been missing, the community and family. Let's commit to this, to each other." She nodded, genuinely smiling, a radiant, infectious joy blooming in the depths of her eyes. "Together," she replied, her voice clear. Suddenly, the crowd's support surged, flowing into their hearts. Jack's kids, who had been hovering nearby, joined in to chant. Their daughter's rebellious spirit swelled. She was chanting proudly, inching closer to her parents. Their son joined in too, his quiet confidence shining through the chaos, urging them forward. They were at the heart of this together, a family inspired by hope, love, and resilience. As they stood united, Jack began to envision a path forward. They would rebuild their family, brick by brick, day by day. They would clear those walls he'd so carelessly built in his negligence. Maybe it would take time, but he now understood that the love he once took for granted was worth every ounce of effort. He took Sarah's hand, squeezing it tightly. "Whatever comes next, I promise to be here for you and the kids. No more distractions, no more barriers." With unwavering conviction, she met his gaze. "I believe you." The chants continued to fill the night, strong and powerful, each voice a heartbeat of a community coming back to life. As they stood together under the colorful lights of the festival, Jack felt the warmth of hope wrap around them, binding them close. It was time to celebrate not just this moment, but the journey ahead. And as the festival flickered with life, they embarked on a new chapter as a family, a story of love, resilience, and hope. Together, they would face whatever came, armed with the knowledge that love is a force willing to endure and rise above all challenges. Now this is your moment. You need to subscribe now to catch our next exclusive stories that will inspire and transform. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us reach even more hearts. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. Show your support and be part of our vibrant community.